Go over here. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Okay.
So here's the question for you. I met Clay in the context of being in a meeting with Clement when he was talking about some guy who's calling out named Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark. I was always wondering where that Mr. Clark was because he was clearly not in the meeting where we were calling him out. So I've had my eyes open for Mr. Clark. Well, then Clay comes on the scene. And conspicuously, he begins to look like the Mr. Clark that was prophesied. How many of you believe in the prophetic? So notice something characteristic about this movement. Those of you that don't raise your hands, it's quite all right. You've been sucked into the vortex of a prophetic movement. All those people around you that raised their hands, they were early adopters of this thing. So what is a prophetic movement? A prophetic movement is something that God initiates by providence before the situation of crisis shows up. God's already put the answer. He has Joseph in Egypt before a famine. He has Daniel in Babylon before Nebuchadnezzar is in power. In other words, God goes before you. The word providence actually is pro, to go before, and video for providence. It means that God sees the future before you step into it. And that means that God has already gone into the future to provide something for his people. So it was in 2015 when they had all these candidates running, and the evangelicals had their favorites. They had their Mike Huckabees, their Ben Carsons. There were people that loved Ted Cruz, and we have all these numerous, all lined up. And then there's this rather rough outlier from Queens who is in the group, and that's Donald Trump. And so all of the evangelicals, which is a formidable part of the Republican Party, as much as 40% of the Republican Party is evangelical. They don't respect you. They kind of pander to you, but they don't realize what a powerful group that is if it's ever properly mobilized. This movement, and this is a movement that Clay is facilitating, is going to come into greater and greater symmetry and unity and become a political force. Now, those of you that applaud are prophetic. See? Because you sense it when you hear something as prophetic, it resonates with you down here. It may be the first time you hear it, but it's like, yeah, that's what it is. That doesn't mean those of you that didn't applaud aren't prophetic. It might be that you're shrewder than other people, and you're going, yeah, maybe, maybe not. But the truth of the matter is, something drew you into this room. It was the providence of God that put this meeting in this place and this time in history. When Donald Trump came along, all I knew was every time I watched the debates and I watched the news cycle, I would laugh when Donald Trump was on. I couldn't explain it because what he was saying was controversial, but my laughter was coming from down here. And my friend Clement had told me we have a meeting with Donald Trump, and we went to this first meeting with Trump at Trump Towers. And that was the day when Kim, my friend, got sick. And within a year or two, he was dead. He wasn't at the meeting, and I was looking for him. But I was supposed to go there to talk to him about what he thought about Donald Trump. But Kim wasn't there to talk to me about Donald Trump. I actually had to hear God for myself. And so I went home, and I said, all I know is I get joy down here every time he says something disastrous. I don't care if he insults gold medal mothers, Muslims, whatever it is. If Rosie O'Donnell's a pig, I don't care what he said. I'm going, hey, Faye, can you believe what he said? I'm calling people up, look, did you hear the latest? And I'm laughing because I'm getting joy because I realize, then I hear the Lord say to me, this is what a prophetic thing is. Sometimes you can hear words come into your mind that it's almost like a conversation, but it's not originating from you. So I hear these words. Donald Trump is a wrecking ball to the spirit of political correctness. Donald Trump is a wrecking ball. Then I hear this next, and it freaked me out because what happened was, I think by association, I think because Kim and I were close, we were supposed to be with Trump, and he was taken out by this attack, I think for a period of time, whatever he was going to get flipped over on me. I was like Benny Hinn in the choir during a Catherine Coleman miracle service. I just got something. But I'm going, what the? I never heard God like that. I thought it was the devil, to be honest with you. I said, there's a spirit talking to me. I never hear God like that. And his voice comes into my ear like a ticker tape. The next president of the United States will be an Isaiah 45 president. Then I hear the 45th president of the United States would be Isaiah 45. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm really going off in the deep end here. I better trek that spirit out. So when you want to try the spirits, you see, how do you test a spirit? You go to Google. That's what I did. I said, the next president of the United States, Barack Obama, obviously he was 44. And I knew that he was elected twice because I was watching that. When he gets elected a second time, that's the 45th. So I go look it up in Google. You know what it says? Whatever number you have when you go in, you stick with the same number. If you get reelected, same number. Then it says in Google, Barack Obama was 44. The next president will be 45. I said, oh my gosh, I am hearing a voice. So then I go to look it up, Isaiah 45. I wish I knew what Isaiah 45 is. All of you should read Isaiah 45. Because what you read in Isaiah 45 is what God wanted for America. And here's the point. We're all going to have to become more spiritually literate in our movement. Because we can't just be ranting and raving, although it's true the election was stolen, and although it's true the government's utilizing, mobilizing globally, COVID, this version, the next version. They were going to do it with climate, but COVID was a better vehicle. They're trying to one world, mark, jab, control humanity. If you could see it, if you know that they're killing the economy, it really doesn't matter if you're a walking righteous outrage machine if you don't mobilize to change it. I mean, what good does it do you to be stuck on the Titanic knowing it's going to go down with icebergs and you can't do anything? Anyway, so I'm hearing Donald Trump is a big, and I get this message, Isaiah 45 is the next president. So I'm talking about how the prophetic works, because I'm going to pray God does it to all of us. Because the prophetic spirit is merely hearing that which the Father is saying and seeing that which the Father wants to make manifest. So I hear this Isaiah 45. I go to Isaiah 45. I'm sorry to say I don't know what Isaiah 45 was. Sometimes preachers, and it was, we all make believe we know the Bible so well. Somebody says, oh, you're Hebrews 6:5. That's what I'm thinking. I go, yeah, that's right. Then we have to look it up. We don't even know what Hebrews 6:5 is. We have to find it. So I go to look up Isaiah 45. Here is what it says. Thus says the Lord to Cyrus, whom I've anointed. You will go through the two-leaved gate doors of Babylon. You will undo the belts of kings. You will break the gates of iron and bronze. And I am going to do this for you, even though you do not know me. I am doing it for my people's sake. Well, this is an extraordinary message. Right away, I said, oh my gosh, Donald Trump, I think, is the Cyrus, because he was the outsider. Cyrus was a Persian. We call him Iranian today. He wasn't a Jew. And the Jews are looking for a Jewish Messiah. The evangelicals are looking for a Christian candidate. How like God to do something biblical and not be religious? So God brings in an outsider, and all the Pharisees and Sanhedrin that don't like his tweets, and he's been married 3 times, and they're all like, truth is, that's the one God anointed, and it reveals all the religious spirits that are among Christians. Does that make sense? So anyway, I said, oh my gosh, Donald Trump is a Cyrus. He's a wrecking ball of the spirit of political correctness. Anyway, long story short, I end up going to a rally. I go to one of my Trump rallies. Friends of mine are getting me involved with the vortex of Trump's world. And I haven't been invited to Mar-a-Lago for a honeymoon yet, but I'm working on it. So anyway, I'm down there in Atlanta. And Atlanta it's a totally African-American audience. It's a black audience. But he was intentional. He was reaching out to the demographics. And so I'm sitting in BET, or some group is doing a television interview. And I'm standing with some prominent, prestigious black Pentecostal leaders. But obviously, I look like a white Jewish attorney or something. I look like an accountant. And I'm standing there with them. And to my horror, the TV lights go on, and these guys are supposed to walk up, and they go up. They're going to talk about Donald Trump. They love Donald Trump. They're going to talk about why. And the guy in charge of the interview goes, and wait a second. We happen to have the vice president of Trump's organization, his personal attorney, Michael Cohen. Would you please come up? It was me. He thought I was Michael Cohen. I'm looking at him. Now, this is like 24 hours after I get the word Donald Trump is a wrecking ball of the spirit of political correctness, and God wants me to put that out there so that images are going to be on Time Magazine, Newsweek of Donald Trump riding a wrecking ball. So how do these things happen? So I'm standing there going, and he goes, come on, come on. I go, I've gotten a little more comfortable with crowds since then, but I'm looking at him, and I'm staring at the camera like I'm fixated, like it's a firing squad. And the guy goes, well, say something. I'm not Michael Cohen. Everybody's looking, say something else. Donald Trump is a wrecking ball to the spirit of political correctness. Thank you. I walked back. It was a Seinfeldian moment if I ever had one. Totally humiliated. I'm saying, oh, hey, what's the matter with me? Donald Trump is a wrecking ball. But all the preachers are going, yeah, I like that. Next thing you know, Donald Trump's the wrecking ball. But that's our movement. Our movement is going to find God using us to put the message out there, whether they like it or not. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense to you? All right, how much time do I have? I completely lost where I was. What was I talking about? It's 12:28, but I know I have a limited amount of time. See, it doesn't help me. You're telling me what time it is. What I need is a countdown clock to tell me when to shut up. I could go all day with a clock. Anyway, the movement, I want to give you a very intelligent word. So I'm studying this movement. I'm praying to the Lord, what is this going to be? He said, I want a populist movement. I want my people to lead it. I'm going to give America a great awakening. It's already begun. It's already begun. Let me tell you something about great awakenings and revivals in history. If you're a student of history, this would be of interest to you. You know, they have like the Great Awakening. The first Great Awakening happened in like 1735 to 1762 with George Whitefield. The second Great Awakening, Charles Finney. The historians put footnotes as to when things happen in retrospect. Important word. After it's happened, they go back to see when it happened. While it's happening, you don't wake up and say, hey, guess what? The awakening started yesterday. What are you doing? Martin Luther didn't get out of bed and go, honey, let's do the Reformation tomorrow. What do you want for breakfast? The historians go back and find it. I believe you are evidence already that an awakening has begun. Now, here's the word I want to give you. It's a very big word. It's a complex word, but it's an important word. It's called bimodal symmetry. I had to look it up again today. John Kenneth Galbraith, an educated Harvard economist. I was going to throw a book out of my library. I got thousands of books. I got books that have books. So I said one day, I'm throwing the books out. Some of these books are trash. Who needs to read them? Look at this one here. I pulled it off a shelf. This one, The Anatomy of Power. What's this about? This guy's been dead for 20 years. I open it up. Exactly prophetically what I needed to look at. That's like how I got so many books cluttering up my house. I don't know which one to throw out. I opened up a chapter. He said, here is what you need to know. For movements to have power, they have to mobilize as one. Because if you're up against a well-organized, and here's our problem, 3.5% of Americans are crazy liberal environmentalists with these racial beliefs that you heard my brother Wayne Allen would say. 3.5%. You know what drives me crazy? The 3.5%, Al-Qaeda is in the cockpit. The crazy people are actually having the levers of power. They're the ones that are moving Wall Street to do what they got to do. They're the ones that control USA Today. They're the ones that are at the top of the tech. It's not the majority. So the majority out there that doesn't have any organization is being manipulated and intimidated by a minority that are highly leveraged in the right positions. That's why you know it's spiritual warfare. Because the crazy people, the crazy guy is driving the bus, but most of the people that are passengers feel like hostages. I don't think God wants America to go over the cliff. But it's not going to stop just because you're outraged and do Facebook posts so you get kicked off. You actually have to go sail where those positions are. We have to mobilize as one. We have to mobilize as a populist movement. And it can't just be a grievance industry movement with 3 or 4 pet topics. We actually have to translate this into legislative power in different states. We should roll into certain swing states and mobilize a vast, and then we got Trump. Hey, listen, it's prophetic that Donald Trump called in on the last event. Why is that prophetic? Because it tells you where it's going. The day's going to come when he's going to walk out on the platform. That's what a prophet sees. You look, bimodal symmetry means that God is raising up enough unity in our movement so that we can capitalize on the fact we're 40% of the Republican Party. If they don't want to listen to us, they won't be in office. Instead of us kind of like wringing our hands and they go, well, it's the end times, it's the Antichrist is coming. Let me ask you a question. What was Jesus promised? Most Christians miss this because American evangelicals have screwed this message up. Most of us are looking to go to heaven when we die and to escape the Antichrist while we're alive. Jesus' plan was a little more ambitious. He said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And then he didn't tell his people, listen, invest in soybeans, get a bomb shelter, and hang on till I show up. He said, occupy till I come. Occupy till I come. Occupy. Don't back up. Don't yield. Well, what about the Antichrist? Don't you know the Antichrist is only around for 3.5 years? 7 years he's on the scene. 3.5 years he's unmasked. He's doing, I can prove this to you later on. Everybody thinks the Antichrist is around for decades. It's a short period of time. And what's he doing? He's going to war, and nobody can beat him. He's going to war. But what does it tell you? It tells you that somebody isn't cooperating. You're supposed to be the nations that are resisting the beast. America's destiny, and then Jesus says when he comes back, he divides the nations into sheep and goats, sheep and goats. Nobody looks at this theology. It's very inconvenient because the nations end up being judged when he returns. Evidently, there are sheep nations. Your job is to go make disciples of nations, starting with your own, and become an irritant to the spirit of Antichrist. And instead of being intimidated, you should be pushing back on the devil because I think he's taken more ground than God intended, and he's doing it to provoke us to take it back. Do you agree with that? Do you agree? This is prophetic. The movement is prophetic. The moment is prophetic. You don't have 5 years to get this right. You don't have another election cycle. You better start taking your ground back now. All right. We're going to do a little exercise here. I see some of you aren't applauding. What's the matter? You don't agree with me? What's the matter? This fellow up here, he's looking at me like he's taking, what is it? We have journalists in the room here? All right, so I'm going to come back again later. It's going to be very exciting. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to activate the prophetic movement in my next cycle. I'll come back later, and we'll activate the prophetic. Fair enough? Thank you.